let's jump into the first fight then. The first fight we have Bobby Drake, Iceman from the X-Men verse.
He said we're gonna go ahead and pull it out now.
Let's go ahead.
He's fighting against Sub-Zero. The location is a glacier.
Glacier.
Yeah.
So environment is also taking a place in this as well.
Yes.
Ooh.
Because this is a death battle. They were taking them and swapping them somewhere. Both. So
okay, he might actually have him by
even without the stage being being ice, Sub-Zero still has at a disadvantage. Now I'll explain why I feel like he's at a disadvantage, because the feats just don't match up. Okay, so we have Sub-Zero first.
Yeah.
Sub-Zero, he is the warrior of Lin Kuei. He was born from the astronaut or Enoch or something like that race, which allows him to be a cryomancer.
Yeah.
Now, that's the limit of his ice. He can manipulate ice and the ice around and the moisture around him to create weapons. And he's a weapons master and a martial arts master.
Yeah.
Now, it is noted that his brother before him, Bihan, was also of the same race, right? But he, who is Kuai Liang, he has mastered his ice level to actually be more superior to Bihan's, which is noted for him to be negative 500 degrees, which is 32. No, I believe it's 32 degrees below absolute zero. That's a feat in its own. So he's been known to freeze things down to their core and break them. That's the feat for Sub-Zero. Not only that, he's also resistant to cold. Very resistant to cold.
And
That's the thing. Not just cold, but other Frost users. So the other person that uses Frost in the series, Frost.
Ironically.
She fought against him, and he nullified every bit of her cryomancer powers.
So yeah, so if that's the case, okay, now go ahead, continue.
I'm giving you all of Sub-Zero's feats, because all of this sounds amazing, right? So you're saying if he's resistant to the ice, how is Bobby Drake gonna do anything
exactly?
with ice?
Yeah, exactly. You already know what I'm questioning.
Exactly. Now
this
is where I get into it. Bobby Drake is not only does he embody ice, he is ice. So when he goes into his ice form, the same way that Sub-Zero goes into his ice form, Sub-Zero makes an ice case, jumps out of it, and whoever hits it, he counters it. But Iceman becomes ice. His blood, veins, muscle, eyes, brain,
he becomes see-through.
Everything. He becomes see-through. And when he does that, not only does he have power over just basic ice, he has thermokinesis.
Thermokinesis?
Yes. Thermokinesis is when you take your body temperature and you can lower it to below absolute zero. Way below absolute zero. And not only that, he can do it in certain areas of his body. So he can make his hand 10 times below absolute zero and punch somebody. And not only that, he also has hydrokinesis. And hydrokinesis turns the body and others into mist. So he can take the moisture of other people's bodies, of the air, of everything to a molecular level and disperse them. Yes, he can do that. Not only can he do that, he also has cryokinesis, which is the same thing Sub-Zero has. Cryokinesis is what Sub-Zero has when he can absorb the moisture from everywhere else. With Bobby Drake being on another level of cryomancy and thermokinesis, he's able to absorb the ice out of Sub-Zero. And Sub-Zero would not be able to do anything about it. On top of that, he has molecular inversion and conversion.
What?
Yes. Yeah. Let me show you. Let me get you the definition of what molecular conversion is. Molecular conversion, or I'll start with molecular inversion. Molecular inversion is, I didn't write it down in my notes, but I'll find it for you. I'll write it down. I'll find it for you. So molecular inversion for Iceman is basically when you take what like I said, you take the molecules and the ice, the moisture, everything that's in the air, in the body, all of that, and you can condense it to a single point. So he can basically make them
kind of like what Zeus did in his Adonis form.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He compacted every bit of his power to the point to where it's so compact they can't do anything about that, and he can take that and disperse it and turn it into molecules, so he could break down Sub-Zero on a molecular level. And let's say he doesn't do that, right? Let's say he doesn't do that, and Sub-Zero is actually able to take every bit of one of those moves, right? Let's say Sub-Zero can combat that. Mm-hmm. Sub-Zero's only notable feat is to be negative 500 degrees below absolute. Only negative 500 degrees. Iceman has been known to freeze an entire nuclear blast, which is 100 million Celsius degrees. Degrees Celsius. 100 million.
Which would take a lot.
A lot, because for every 0 degrees is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you convert 100 million degrees Celsius into Fahrenheit, you get 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is still way larger than negative 500 degrees Celsius. Because negative 500 degrees Celsius is only 800 or so, I think it's like 700 to 800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Damn.
That's exactly.
Damn.
So then if you put those two feats together, Bobby Drake's ice alone is cold enough to freeze Sub-Zero before he even thinks about trying to freeze Bobby Drake. Bobby Drake is on a whole nother level when it comes to cryokinesis.
I see where you're coming from on that point. Right?
Completely different level.
I see. Yeah. That makes sense.
Now, but there is a weakness. There is a weakness to Bobby. If he's not in ice form, he's a normal human. And we've seen how Sub-Zero can handle up on a normal human.
That's true.
He only can fight for 5 hours. So let's say Sub-Zero can outlast him. Let's say Sub-Zero outlasts him for 5 hours. Because they virtually can move the same. They both can slide around. Unless there is a difference. Iceman can actually turn himself into mist and move around as well. Kind of like teleportation, basically.
Okay.
So he can do that. But they both have phenomenal movement. Let's say they fight each other to the point where it's past 5 hours. That's the only way that Sub-Zero can beat Iceman, is if he outlasts him for 5 hours. But there isn't a notable feat for Sub-Zero fighting longer than an hour and a half. And I'm basing that off. It's a long fight. A long fight. So for him, so you can't even say that's technically a weakness unless he's going against Ultron level motherfuckers. And it's a bunch of them.
Ultron's army.
So
exactly.
He's got it down to a T. Okay.
This fight right here was probably the most interesting fight out of every fight that we have in the versus battle, because they're both cryomancers to a T.
Okay.
But one cryomancer has a little bit more leeway than the other. And he completely nullifies.
A little bit. I say a little bit.
I was being modest. He has a lot more leeway.
A little bit.
And I didn't even tell you this one. Bobby Drake has been known to contain the Hawk.
I didn't know that.
In an ice cage.
How?
He froze Hawk in an ice cage. Didn't freeze Hawk. He froze a cage around Hawk that the Hawk was not able to break out of.
Now that's interesting. I did not know that.
Because if you think about it, Sub-Zero's ice can be broken.
That it can be.
Goro broke out of it. Liu Kang has broken out of it.
Everybody in the series.
Everybody in the series has broken out of his ice at some point. Unless he directly touched their body and destroyed them.
Huh. So Iceman's ice is that strong to hold the Hulk?
Yes.
Huh.
Iceman is comparable to where his ice form is damn near as strong as Colossus's metal form.
So do we have a conscious winner then?
Bobby Drake for the win.
Like you said, Sub-Zero. No,
Bobby Drake for the win.
Any arguments?
Drake wins that one. No.
No?
He's proving his point. I can't argue it. Like I said, I can't argue it. We're debating. I can't even debate it. He's got me beat. He's got me stuffed. Shit. I can't take it.
All right. Well, match number 1. Bobby Drake takes the win over Sub-Zero.